Hi all, and thanks for being with me. Before I say anything else, can I just ask you to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. It helps me out greatly, and I appreciate it. And it doesn't cost you anything, so just do it. Now, Australians have decided that we actually don't like Donald Trump. That we see him as dumb, dangerous, and dishonest. And I think what a discerning bunch of individuals that we are. And to some extent, this needs to be celebrated for what it is, which is Australia's ability to be able to recognise an idiot when we see one. And that, I said sometime last year, I think, I predicted that Australians will see Trump for the way that he is because we don't like idiots. We do tend to reject them when they have some sort of political influence, like when they become Prime Minister. We're kind of circumspect. We understand that people do overstep the mark from time to time. And we're so discerning that when it happens, we often voice our disapproval. You know, what's happening in the United States right now would never happen in Australia on the same scale, simply because we have a different system. And our system, as flawed as it is, has not got the deficits that the United States system has, which causes a president, the leader of the country, to become a dictator or a king. So Australians have said in an interesting survey that came out recently that we think that basically Donald Trump's a clown. And in this report, which says Australia, this is in the Sydney Morning Herald, I think, Australians on Trump is dumb, dangerous, and dishonest, we think, and rightfully so. So Australians have some of the most critical attitude towards US President Donald Trump and his administration among the world's voters, with an international survey revealing most people find him arrogant, dangerous, and a threat to the global economy. How discerning is the rest of the world? Anyway, the US-based Pew Research Centre's annual survey of global attitude towards the US shows Australians are even more concerned about Trump and his impact than people in Canada and Mexico, which are the border on, which he dumps on all the time, which are feeling the direct impact of the presidency's policy agenda. Only voters in Sweden, it's nice to know that we kind of can relate to the Swedes. I think that's fabulous. They're great people. And only voters in Sweden have stronger anti-Trump views than Australians, who believe the president is unable to understand complex problems, not qualified to hold his job, and is unlikely to deal with major issues such as the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. The non-partisan Pew think tank has tracked global public opinions for more than 2 decades, identifying trends and changing attitudes on key issues and government action. Based on the response of 28,333 people across 24 nations, Pew found the attitudes towards the United States had darkened. Shouldn't be any surprise to any of us since Trump began his second term as president. Now, these are the statistics. I think they're quite interesting. Confidence in Trump to do the right thing regarding world affairs. So the reality is here, what we're being asked is whether or not we can trust this character. Well, clearly we can't. Australia is at 77%, with no confidence, 22%, which is pretty damn low. Canada's at 77%, same, but that's understandable because they're neighbours and he's been dumping on them for a long time. The interesting one was Israel. Well, that's because they supply them with weapons and they're doing what they can to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza. UK was pretty high, I reckon. Sweden was 85%. And Mexico was 91%, which I guess one can understand. So the mean average between all the countries, though, was 62%. There were large falls in favourability ratings in Mexico, down 32 points, and Canada down 20 points, which have faced direct economic threats from Trump. In three nations, favourability increased, including Israel, where the president is viewed favourably by 69% of the respondents, and Nigeria, heaven only knows why, at 79%. Does democracy work in the United States? Is an interesting question in itself. So 72% somewhat poorly, or very poorly, in Australia, 66% in Canada, 54% in the UK, 77% in Sweden, so they're a little bit better than us in that, 59% in Mexico, and the mean average was 46%, which is below 50%. So, but here we're in Australia saying that the democracy, and I've been saying this for ages, so it's kind of comforting, I think, to know that basically the rest of the world agree with me. So there were some other interesting aspects in relation to Trump too. So the description of Trump as arrogant, and we put, this is where the tall poppy syndrome has a major effect on the way we view the other people, I think. 91% said that he's arrogant in Australia. There's a strong leader, only 43%. Dangerous, 81%. Able to understand complex problems, 20%. So there's a lot of people. This is quite comforting in lots of ways, because it is clear that there's a lot of people who agree with me, which is really nice. So I'd like to know whether you think that some of these things are really, really interesting. There's also another one, confidence in Trump to handle key global issues. So we say, I'll just flash this one up. Australia, US immigration policies, 31%. Russia-Ukraine conflict, 25%. So they're all pretty low in terms of what we think he's capable of doing. Basically, he's not capable of doing all that much. So, you know, is a lost cause. Well, it's not a lost cause. That's probably unfair, because lots of people in the United States still support him for reasons which I really find hard to understand. But we're seeing it in the United States at the moment with regard to the protests. I won't call them riots because they're not riots, but the protests in the United States in relation to Trump, because he's endeavouring to make the United States a dictatorship, and where he's experimenting with how much power he can have, and how much influence he can have, and how much he can bend the judiciary to his will. So these are the things that are important to Trump, but they're things which the rest of the world sees as dangerous. So what this means, I think, eventually, is that the rest of the world, and I think this is happening to some extent now, do not trust him. Will never trust him. Probably now will never trust the United States to put someone in power who has a sense of global economic situations, who just will not be able to understand the impact that the United States has on the rest of the world. And as a result of that, the rest of the world will sever themselves from the United States, become less and less interested in the United States. And of course, at the end of the day, this means the United States will suffer a recession and will fall apart. So let's wait and see. But let me know what you think. Remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. An interesting survey, and I think it has some specific meaning for all of us. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.